There we go.
Cool. So good morning, everyone. I have the pleasure of introducing someone who not only helps my clients, which is very important for us as realtors, but someone who helps me, right? So when I first met him, he told me, "Hey, I can help you with anything you need, real estate, mortgage related." I'm like, yeah, everybody says they can help you until it doesn't benefit them. So the first two interactions that I had with him, where I had an issue with a client where he had nothing to do with the deal, he helped my clients like as if it was his dealing, right? So with the new atmosphere that we're going into, I felt that it was important that I share him with my tribe that I hold so sacred, because we're all scared. We're all trying to figure out, am I going to have to now beg people for my commission? How is this negotiation going to go? But after having a conversation with Corey, it was like, oh, okay, there's another option. There's another way that someone who's already going about to put out all this money into the biggest purchase of their life, of another option of being able to complete the transaction and not feel like they had to burden their transaction with me. So I have the pleasure and the honor to introduce Mr. Corey Angland.
Corey, thank you so much for being here, sir. The floor is yours. Do you need to share my screen?
No, you know what? As a guest today, I wasn't sure what the environment would be. So I just really wanted to come and be, speak, be a listener, and just participate in some of this great content. So,
Awesome. Awesome. Well, the floor is all yours.
all right. Well, listen, David, thank you for the platform. Kevin, thank you for such an amazing introduction. So I'm meeting many of you for the first time. My name is Corey Angland. I am a mortgage banker and branch manager for CrossCountry Mortgage. I'm a big believer, guys, that to have a good relationship, you have to have background information. So, what I would like to do is just tell you a little bit about who I am, the banker, the man, community leader. And, hopefully we can get into some engaging conversation about some of the things that are affecting you guys. And just really, again, I'm a part of the same community, guys. So whether I'm on the finance side, the real estate sales side, like we all participate in this community where we're trying to make some changes. So, I'm eager to share and to listen and just to be, a part of the community. So back to me. So I've been in the lending space for 19 years. I have a degree in finance and banking. I love finance, guys. Everything to do with finance, I love it. My challenge when I graduated high school was to figure out how to take my passion for finance and do something good with it. When I first got out, didn't happen that way. I started working in corporate America, and I did Merrill Lynch. I worked at Morgan Stanley. I worked at Goldman Sachs. And every institution I went to, I realized more and more that it really wasn't for me. I've never been the type of guy to have a ceiling above my head or have someone tell me, you have to have a certain amount of tenure and still not be able to make a difference in the communities that I love or communities that I wanted to see change. So it wasn't until I purchased my first property that I saw a different dynamic. And it's so funny, the loan officer that did the loan for me, really, really good guy, but he didn't understand his craft. For him, it was more of, get paid, which obviously we all want to get compensated, but he didn't understand what it meant for me, right? I was just starting a family at that time. And, I was just as scared when I purchased my home as I was when my son was born. And he didn't have enough experience to be able to help me understand how to navigate what to do now with this new form asset, right? This asset that I procured. He didn't help me. He didn't understand his craft. So, after I closed, it was a great opportunity for me to sit in this new house and figure out what I wanted to do with myself and how I wanted to take what I love to do again, which is finance. And my wife made a comment. She said, you know what? Why don't you think about doing what Jay does? Now, Jay was a loan officer. And I thought about it for a week. And every single light bulb that you can imagine went off because I began to think about what didn't happen well for me, how I felt, the anxiety, the fears. And I said to myself, you know what? If I could take everything I love transition that to being able to help people who are looking to move from renting to owning and mitigate all of the anxiety, the fears, and help them do it in a different way, then that's my calling. And for the past 19 years, guys, that's what I have done. You know, taking a family or an individual, or it could be, you know, someone who's a savvy investor, and helping them to understand the nuance of that transaction, how to truly take that asset and turn it into an asset class, which has never been a dinner table conversation for me. I don't know for many of you, we didn't talk about procuring real estate assets at any dinner table that I've ever been a part of. So, you know, for me to now be on the other side of the fence, and, you know, I have my initial conversations with my clients, and we're talking about building, you know, buying a primary residence. What does a real estate portfolio look like, right? A second home, maybe an investment property. We talk fix and flips. So, you know, it's just really, really a cool space that I'm in. So again, guys, I wanted to tell you a little bit about me as a banker. So I'm also a husband. I'm a father of two. I have a 23-year-old son, and I have a 16-year-old daughter who's going to college in 3 weeks. So my baby is leaving the house, and I'm not too, I'm happy and I'm sad about it. Okay. I'll tell you that. But, you know, ultimately, guys, these really represent all of my whys, right? Leading my community, changing my community, showing my son and daughter what it means to be responsible in your space, and just really, you know, doing whatever I can to be a willing participant in our community. Okay. So coming back to just on the finance side a little bit. So as I mentioned, I'm a branch manager at CrossCountry Mortgage. I am personally licensed in 11 states. So I cover from Connecticut all the way down to Florida and Texas. So I know many of you are licensed in New Jersey, do a ton of business in New Jersey, and I'll speak about that a little later. I finance everything from cooperatives, condominiums, 1 through 4s, and then even beyond. I'm also a commercial mortgage broker. So I can also assist with anything over 4 units, mixed use properties, that 20 apartment unit, you know, residential complex. We can have a conversation about that. And then some of the other nuanced things like bank statement only products, I-10 products, DSCR products, which are becoming very popular today. So, you know, I cover a variety of different loan products. And I think ultimately, guys, what I do really, really well, and Kevin spoke about this, I wear my heart on my sleeve. As I mentioned to you, I love finance. I love changing lives. But more importantly, I understand that it's, you know, this is a process that more times than not, most people either do not receive the level of service that they're supposed to. They don't receive the level of education they need to make an informed decision. And then they, you know, also they're not provided with the list of products to be able to make informed decisions. So these are the things that I do well. And for every single client that I come across, it starts with a consultation about their specific needs, right? I never make an assumption that buyer A has similar purchase goals to buyer B. I listen more than I speak, and it gives me the opportunity to put together a few different options to provide to my clients so that they can make the best decision. And once they come back to me with, you know, questions or, you know, ideas about loan products, then I sit down and I put together an estimated payment and closing cost summary, because that's very important, right, guys? I know as a consumer, when I make a purchase, I want to know everything and I want to see it in writing. So I'm very, very big on transparency. I make it a point to make sure our clients have everything in writing, number one, so that they can see it. Number two, so that they can hold me accountable. So accountability and transparency has always been very important to me over the past 19 years. So again, guys, I want to get too much into, you know, to the finance side, but as I mentioned, you know, having background information is extremely important to having a to having a successful relationship. And I would welcome the opportunity to have a very, very good relationship with each of you of the call. So I know today we wanted to touch on some of the nuances and some of the things that are obviously going to come into effect after August 17th. David, I'm not sure if you wanted to do how you wanted to play it, if you wanted me to just kind of dive into some of the expectations, or if you wanted to just, you know.
I have a question.
Okay,
You,
sure.
Dave, can I ask a question?
No, Kev, you go ahead and
quick,
go ahead.
yeah, because we have about 10 more minutes. I wanted to really ask the question because I still have another question regarding rolling the commission into the loan itself. Will we be able to get paid at the close? Will we get a separate check, or will we have to wait later to get our commission check?
So great question, Kevin. So, I really over the past 6 to 9 months, I've done my best as a lender to dive into a lot of the nuances and just some of the legal jargon that I've read. And the simplicity is this, guys. After August 17th, the most important thing with the NAR ruling is they wanted to take away the verbiage from all MLS, all multiple listing services regarding buyer agents getting compensated, right? But there are three ways that a buyer agent can get compensated. It's directly having an agreement with the consumer for a fixed commission. It is either the listing agent giving up a portion of their commission, or the seller providing the buyer agent with a seller concession to cover the purchaser's. Excuse me. The seller providing the purchaser with the seller concession to cover their closing costs. Now, closing costs can include the buyer commission, which can be added to the closing disclosure. So, Kevin, to your question, yes, we have the ability to add the buyer commission as a line item to the CD. That is a part of the closing costs. And then the seller concession can be utilized to offset the purchaser's prepaids and or closing costs. So yes, at the closing, you would still walk away with your commission compensation.
That's great. That's great. Matt has a quick question.
Regarding commission and the seller's concession, was there anything that you know of or any creative ways that we know that sometimes giving a seller's concession, there's a percentage threshold that we can't surpass for the buyer. So this could potentially hurt the buyer. So is there a workaround for this, or did they come out and correct this at all? Have you heard?
So Matt, great question. So from a lending perspective, no. And just to provide some clarity, so for FHA financing, the maximum seller concession that a purchaser can have is 6%. And that includes all seller credits, anything. And for a conventional loan, if your loan to value is above or greater than 90%, the maximum seller concession is 3%. If it's 90% or lower, the maximum seller concession is 6%. So Matt, I think these are some of the nuances that we have to work out. I don't know if many of you remember, but in 2011, we had Dodd-Frank, and Dodd-Frank was almost the equivalent of this NAR ruling, except it was for loan officers. And what the banking department said was we wanted to restructure and limit how loan officers are paid. So very, very similar. And obviously that was the fallout from the mortgage meltdown in 2007 and 2008. So Matt, coming back to your question, I think this is really something that we as an industry will continue to work out. One of the interesting things that I found is that verbiage regarding the seller's ability to provide the purchaser with the seller concession. So when you think about it, as we know, a seller concession, if let's say Kevin and I, Kevin is the seller, I'm the purchaser, Kevin is selling to me and I want to purchase that property. Let's say we agree to a round number of 500,000. If the net price to Kevin is 500,000 and I ask for a seller concession to offset my closing costs, let's say in the amount of 3%, which is 15,000, the new effective purchase price would be 515,000 with 500,000 net to the seller, which would be Kevin. And then a 15,000 will be waiting for me at closing to help offset my closing costs. In this scenario, we have to work out the dynamic, right? Because if the seller is saying that, hey, listen, I am willing to give a 2% or 3% seller concession to buyer Corey, well, some of the nuances are, what will the net to the seller be? And I think every scenario is going to be different, guys. So, I think we have to really approach this with an open mind, because I know there's some fears regarding it, but I think once the dust settles after August 17th, we're going to find that it's business as usual. And sellers still need to sell. Listing agents may not have the right buyers and they have to rely on buyer agents. And those conversations still happen. NAR does allow those conversations to happen. They just don't want it to be listed on any multiple listing service.
All right. And I think Kev had another question too.
So the seller will have to pay taxes on our fee, basically, on that concession.
So the seller is paying their respective portion of the tax on the purchase price. Now, again, whether there's actually an increase in the purchase price, whether the seller is actually giving up a little bit of their net proceeds, that remains to be seen, Kevin. So I don't think that's a straightforward question. I think it really depends on how the net to the seller is plays out.
Okay.
Got it. Got it. Anybody else have any other questions? And I have to say this, Corey, you're definitely going to be back on the call. I like the way you break everything down to make it really understandable. I want to see if anybody else has any questions here or on Instagram. Going once, going twice. Okay. I think Kev and Matt had all the questions. Is there anything you want to wrap us up with? Because I want to have you come back on. I feel like we need to have a longer conversation about this. Is there anything else that you want to share before we do wrap up?
The only thing I would say, David, is so when I first, when you started, you spoke about really about attitude and perspective. And guys, I think ultimately the perspective really has to be you're helping a buyer procure an asset. That asset will appreciate in value over time. I don't think you guys should be fearful about having a conversation about being compensated, right? Every other industry from fund managers, money market managers, we have no issues with paying these individuals to help us grow our wealth. In the same vein, I think, the more we master our craft, guys, go out there with confidence and have those conversations. You're helping somebody buy a house today that will appreciate in value. So the more you demonstrate your value, the easier it is for you to sit down and have a conversation with that buyer who wants to see you get paid. They don't want to see you taking time away from your family and not getting compensated. But I think we have to have the confidence to have that conversation.
That part right there, man. I love that you ended with that. I have to understand our value. We have to know we are helping people grow their wealth. You're absolutely right. And I go to my accountant, I go to my investment guy. I'm so happy to pay them because I see the benefits of it. And so we have to know our value and what we do for our clients. And once we can articulate that, they won't have an issue paying us either. So I completely agree with you on that. Corey, I want to say thank you for being here. Two things really quickly. I too have a daughter going to college next month. Elon University in Greensboro. So we're all like packing up and it's emotional over here at the Radney house. So I know how things are going. And the second thing is I love seeing that Canon behind you because I see you're big on getting content, I'm sure, if you got the camera sitting right behind you. And I'm all about documenting versus creating. So I love to see that. I think that's awesome, man.
Well, thank you. Congratulations on your daughter.
Yes, sir.
I know you feel the same way I feel. So
I know that's right. We will definitely be in touch. I'll reach out to you after the call. Can you do me a favor and put your contact information in? I'm sure there are people here that are not in New Jersey. So I'm sure people may want to work with you, even the folks here in New Jersey. So put in the best way to contact you and also put in your Instagram as well, because a lot of people do a lot of connections on Instagram. Corey, thank you for being here. It was really good.